So let's bring back in our panel to weigh in on what is happening. There's a lot to get through there. I'll let you start with any area that you'd like to, the direction you'd like to go. Dennis, start with you.
Politics, politics, politics. Look, January 6th was a tragic day in American history, something that as a former member of Congress that knows those halls, that has been there, that knows those Capitol Police, that knows those members of Congress, it was awful and repugnant to see. But we don't have to politicize the investigation, or maybe we do, because that's what's going to keep them in stronger power. Look, they've already got the majority. They can keep the majority on the investigation committee and get the outcome that they want to have. But this politicizing and saying, well, we don't want the people you're picking because we don't agree with them. It's kind of like Roger Goodell at the NFL saying, look, Tom Brady, you can't play in the Super Bowl anymore because you got too many rings. Yeah. It makes illogical sense. And that's what's happening here. We need to let the process go the way it was intended. You know, unfortunately, this speaker has had such a tight grip that we're not going to see, I think, what really happened until another administration ensues and a real balanced investigation is done.
Yeah, and speaking of that, David, here's what Kevin McCarthy had to say in terms of what does need to be focused on. He said 2 questions. Listen.
What really comes down to is there's 2 questions. Why were we so ill prepared? If you read the Senate report, you know they knew at December 14th. Why were we so ill prepared? Second is, you got to make sure it never happens or has the ability to happen again. In that meantime, since that January, we have lost Officer Evans on Good Friday. From a driven individual that could be politically motivated, I think everything should be looked at.
So, David, do you have any faith that this investigation will do that? Because Nancy Pelosi says that she, as we've said, does have a quorum. She will move forward with it.
Well, hopefully, cross your fingers. That's the only thing we can hope for, is that this will never happen again, no matter whether you're from the left or the right. The ex-congressman is absolutely correct. This was a dark day in American history, and we want to make sure that these conditions are never conducive to anything remotely similar to this happening again. From a political commentator standpoint, I'm fascinated by Liz Cheney's behavior, her commentary, and the reason why she's dying on this battlefield. She's definitely securing a place for herself in the history books, and something that is increasingly politically complicated for her if we're talking about politics, politics, politics.
But do you have faith that this investigation, as it stands now, with the people that will be participating, will attempt to answer any of those questions, or will be fair and balanced at all?
Well, I think that this is turning way too partisan for anyone to really feel that we're going to get the right answers. And this would be the case even in a reverse world. I think that most Americans want bipartisanship and they want bipartisan inquiry, and they're just looking for the truth. And unfortunately, with all of the partisan politics going on in the background, that's something we might not get from this commission.
I want to get to this with you, Stacey, since David brought up Congresswoman Liz Cheney. She has agreed with Nancy Pelosi's decision to reject both Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. Here's what she said.
The rhetoric that we have heard from the minority leader is disingenuous. At every opportunity, the minority leader has attempted to prevent the American people from understanding what happened, to block this investigation. She objected to 2, one of whom may well be a material witness to events that led to that day, that led to January 6th. The other, who disqualified himself by his comments in particular over the last 24 hours, demonstrating that he is not taking this seriously.
So just wrap this up for us. Your thoughts.
So I'm just going to go out there and say, Liz Cheney, watching her is like watching an aircraft that's been hit by a surface-to-air missile. And that aircraft, it bursts into flames, and then it breaks apart, and it falls to the ground in pieces. And that's what we're watching with Liz Cheney. She has literally torpedoed or surface-to-air missiled her own career in politics, and now we're having to watch it go down slowly and on fire. She should never talk about anyone disqualifying themselves. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have disqualified themselves by comments they've made about sitting members of Congress. and American citizens. This is not an inquiry. This is a witch hunt so that they can get material that will help them in the midterm because they're terrified of what the American people are going to do to them in the midterm because of their awful policies that they've instituted since they took power.
Should she be removed from her committee assignments?
She should have been removed from her committee assignments. And the last thing that should happen is to have her standing on the steps of any one of our hallowed buildings that are owned by we the people talking about disqualification. She has disqualified herself from speaking on anything as long as she holds a political party membership on any committee, and the fact that she's in Congress as a Republican. She should renounce her Republican seat and caucus with the Democrats.
All right. Thank you, panel.